The great hall of the Galactic Council stretched for miles in every direction. Thousands of alien species sat in their designated seats, their strange bodies filling the air with clicks, hums, and whistles. Light from distant stars poured through crystal windows, casting rainbow shadows across the polished floor. Commander Lisa Holloway sat in the back row with her small team. The seats reserved for humans were the worst in the entire building. Far from the central platform where important decisions were made, she had grown used to this treatment in the 3 years. Since humanity had joined the galactic community, beside her sat Lieutenant Danny Ortega, a young officer with nervous eyes. He kept checking his tablet, scrolling through messages from Earth's command. On her other side was Dr. Nina Sullivan, the smartest scientist humanity had ever produced, though the aliens would never admit it. "Something feels wrong today," Danny whispered. Lisa nodded slowly. She had felt it too from the moment they entered the hall. The alien delegates kept looking at them, not with curiosity, which she was used to, but with something else. Something that made her skin crawl. Ambassador Vexari of the Calthorian hegemony rose from his seat. He was a tall creature with gray scales and 4 yellow eyes that never blinked. His species had ruled this part of the galaxy for 10,000 years, and they never let anyone forget it. "Honored delegates," Vexari said, his translator turning his hissing speech into words everyone could understand. "We gather today to discuss a matter of great importance. The human problem." Lisa's hands tightened on the arms of her chair. A massive hologram appeared in the center of the hall. It showed Earth spinning slowly in the darkness of space. Beautiful and blue and terribly small compared to the empire that surrounded it. "These creatures joined our community 40 cycles ago," Vexar continued. "In that short time, they have proven themselves to be everything we feared. Violent, primitive, dangerous." The hologram changed. Now it showed images from human history. Wars and battles, explosions and fire, the faces of dictators and murderers. Each image drew gasps of horror from the alien audience. Lisa wanted to stand up and scream that these images were lies. Well, not lies exactly, but not the whole truth either. Yes, humans had fought wars. Yes, they had done terrible things to each other. But they had also created beauty and art and music. They had learned from their mistakes. They were trying to be better, but she knew that no one would listen. "They eat the flesh of other creatures," Vexari said, his voice dripping with disgust. "They kill billions of animals every year. They poison their own air and water. They have weapons that could destroy their entire planet, and they have actually used them against their own kind." The Melaran delegate, a being made of pure energy held together by a magnetic shell, pulsed with anger. "Monsters. We have let monsters into our home." Danny grabbed Lisa's arm. "We need to leave now." Lisa shook her head. "If we run, they win. We stay, and we listen, and we remember everything they say." Vexari raised one of his clawed hands for silence, but that is not the worst of it. "Our spies have discovered that the humans have been building warships in secret. Military vessels hidden among their exploration fleet. They are preparing to attack us." This time Lisa did stand up. She could not help herself. "That is a lie." The entire hall went silent. 10,000 alien eyes turned to look at her. Vexari smiled. It was a terrible expression on his reptilian face. The savage speaks without permission. How fitting for such a primitive creature. "Those are research ships," Lisa said, fighting to keep her voice steady. "We have been completely honest about our fleet. You are making up stories to justify whatever you are planning to do to us." "Silence the creature," Vexari commanded. 2 security drones appeared from nowhere. They floated beside Lisa, their weapons humming with deadly energy. Danny and Dr. Sullivan both stood up, positioning themselves between Lisa and the drones. "You cannot silence me," Lisa said. "The truth does not care about your lies." Vexaria's 4 eyes narrowed. "The truth. Let me tell you the truth, little human. Your species is a disease, a cancer on the body of galactic civilization, and like all cancers, you must be cut out before you can spread." He turned to address the entire hall. At that moment, the broadcast began. Every screen on every planet in the galaxy showed what was happening in the council chamber. Let this serve as a warning to all species who would challenge the natural order, Vexari announced. The humans will be quarantined to their home system. Any human vessel found outside the soul boundary will be destroyed immediately. Their colonies on Mars, Europa, and Titan will be dismantled. Their people will be sent back to Earth where they belong. The hall erupted in applause. Thousands of aliens cheered and clapped and made whatever sounds their species used to show approval. Lisa looked around at the celebration. She saw the joy on their alien faces, the satisfaction in their strange eyes. They were happy to see humanity caged. They were excited to watch her people suffer. Something changed inside her at that moment. The fear and anger and helplessness she had felt for so long transformed into something else. Something cold and hard and patient. She activated her personal communicator. Speaking on an encrypted channel that the aliens had never been able to crack. Holloway to Earth Command. They have made their move. It is worse than we expected. A calm voice answered in her ear. Understood, Commander. I come home. We have work to do. The security drones escorted the human delegation toward the exit. As they walked through the cheering crowd, Lisa caught Vexari's eye. She did not look away. She did not show any fear. Instead, she smiled. For just a moment, something flickered across Vexari's face. His scales tightened. His 4 eyes blinked, which they almost never did. He had expected fear. He had expected tears or anger or begging. He had not expected a smile. On Earth, the broadcast played on every screen in every city. People stopped what they were doing and watched. They saw alien faces mock them. They heard alien voices call them savages. They learned that they were now prisoners in their own solar system, in Houston. General Marcus Webb stood before a room full of military leaders. The broadcast had just ended. No one spoke. The silence was so thick, you could almost touch it. Secretary Patricia Dunn was the first to find her voice. What do we do now? Webb turned to face her. He had served his country for 40 years. He had fought in wars and led armies and faced death more times than he could count. But he had never felt anything like this. No, he said slowly. We show them what human savagery really looks like. The room remained silent. But in the eyes of every person present, a fire had begun to burn. The same fire that had driven humanity to survive ice ages and plagues and world wars. The same fire that had taken them from caves to the stars the galaxy had made. A terrible mistake. They just did not know it yet. 3 months passed after the broadcast. The Galactic Council kept their promise. The Calthorian battle fleet arrived first. 200 warships, each one bigger than anything humanity had ever built. They spread out across the edge of the Sol system like a wall of steel and fire. Their weapons pointed inward, toward Earth, ready to destroy any ship that tried to escape. The evacuation of the human colonies was brutal. Soldiers in alien armor marched through the streets of Mars City, ordering everyone to pack their belongings. Families who had spent their whole lives on the Red Planet were given 6 hours to leave everything behind. 12 million. People were forced to return to Earth. They came on crowded transport ships, packed together like animals. Children cried for homes they would never see again. Old people died from the stress of the journey. And all the while, Council observers recorded everything, broadcasting the images across the galaxy as a warning to other species. On Earth, the mood changed day by day. At first, there was shock, then sadness, then anger, and finally, something deeper and more dangerous. A cold determination that spread through every city and every town. Commander Lisa Holloway now worked in an underground base beneath Cheyenne Mountain. The facility had been built 100 years ago to survive nuclear war. Now it served as the headquarters for something else entirely. Captain Kevin Marsh handed her a tablet with the latest intelligence report. He was a tall man with kind eyes that had grown harder over the past 3 months. Everyone's eyes had grown harder. The Council is already dividing up our colony territories, Kevin said. The Calthorians get Mars. The Melorans want Europa for the water ice. Everyone is taking a piece of what was ours. Lisa scrolled through the report without showing any emotion. She had trained herself not to react anymore. Emotions were a luxury she could not afford. What about the other species? She asked. Are there any who might help us? The Venari sent a formal complaint to the council. It was ignored. The Thrix refused to participate in the vote, but they are not going to risk anything for us. Kevin shook his head. We are alone. Good. Kevin blinked in surprise. Good. How is that good? Lisa set down the tablet and walked to the main display screen. It showed the Kelthorian fleet, each ship marked with a red dot. 200 points of light forming a prison around humanity's home. I have been studying the Council's own history files, she said. Do you know what happened to the last species that was like us? The last ones they called dangerous and primitive. Tell me. They were called the Varaxan. 3,000 years ago, they were rising fast, building new technology, expanding their territory. The Council got scared. Lisa pulled up an old file on the screen. They did the same thing to the Varaxan that they are doing to us. First came the propaganda, then the quarantine. And when the Varaxan were weak enough, the Council invaded. Kevin studied the screen. The file showed images of destroyed cities, empty planets, mass graves. 6 billion dead, Lisa continued. Wiped out in 3 days. The Council called it a mercy killing. They said they were protecting the galaxy from a dangerous species. The command center had gone quiet. Other officers had stopped their work to listen. The Varaxan made one mistake, Lisa said. They trusted the Council to be fair. They followed the rules. They believed that if they behaved well, they would be treated well. She turned to face Kevin. We are not going to make that mistake. The door to the command center opened. General Webb walked in, followed by Secretary Dunn and Dr. Nina Sullivan. The scientists looked tired but excited, like someone who had not slept in days but did not care. Mander Holloway. Webb said, Dr. Sullivan has something to show us all. Nina connected her tablet to the main display. The Kelthorian fleet disappeared, replaced by blueprints that made no sense to most people in the room. But Lisa had studied enough to understand. Is that what I think it is? She asked. Dimensional full drive, Nina confirmed. We reverse engineered it from a crashed Council scout ship 18 years ago. Took us almost 2 decades to figure out how it worked, but we did it. Our version is actually faster and more efficient than theirs. How many ships do we have? 12 completed and fully tested. Another 40 are being built right now. If we push hard, we can have 75 ready in 6 months. Secretary Dunn spoke up. The Council thinks we are primitives with barely functional spacecraft. They have no idea what we have actually built in secret. Lisa stared at the blueprints. 75 ships with full drives. Ships that could appear anywhere in the galaxy without warning. Ships that could strike and vanish before the enemy knew what hit them. This changes everything, she said quietly. It changes our options, Webb agreed. But we still need a strategy. We cannot beat them in a direct fight. Not yet. But we can make them understand that destroying us would cost them more than leaving us alone, Lisa thought about the Varaxan. 6 billion dead because they played by the rules. 6 billion dead because they believed in fairness. With respect, General, she said, leaving us alone is not enough anymore. They have shown us exactly who they are. If we just make them back off now, they will try again later. Maybe in 10 years, maybe in 100, but they will try. What are you suggesting? Lisa took a deep breath. I am suggesting we stop playing defense. The Council thinks they know what humans are capable of. They have seen our old wars and our weapons, and they think they understand us. She pulled up a new display showing the locations of every major Council military base, every communication network, every important target in the galaxy. They have no idea what we can really do when we are pushed into a corner. I say we show them. The silence in the room was heavy. Everyone understood what she was proposing. It was not defense. It was not even a fair fight. It was a message. General Webb looked at the display for a long time. Then he smiled, a thin and dangerous expression. I was hoping you would say that, he said. Let us get to work. Over the next 6 months, humanity worked harder than they had ever worked before. Factories ran day and night building ships. Scientists perfected weapons that the Council had never imagined. Soldiers trained in secret facilities, learning tactics that would make them the deadliest warriors in the galaxy. And through it all, the Kalthorian fleet sat at the edge of the solar system, watching and waiting. Completely unaware of what was being prepared just out of their sight, the Council had called humanity savage. They were about to learn just how right they were. 6 months to the day after the broadcast, Ambassador Vexari came to visit the blockade. It was a vanity trip. He wanted to see the caged humans with his own eyes. He wanted to stand on the bridge of his flagship and look at Earth spinning helplessly in the distance. Most of all, he wanted to feel powerful. The flagship was called Dominion's Wrath. It was the largest warship in the Kalthorian fleet. 5 miles long and bristling with weapons that could crack a planet in half, Vexari walked its corridors like a king walking through his palace. Status report, he demanded when he reached the bridge. The tactical officer, a young Kalthorian named Tevlos, checked his instruments. All quiet, Ambassador. The humans have not tried to leave their system in 30 rotations. They seem to have accepted their situation. Vexari made a satisfied sound. Of course they have. The creatures have learned their place. They understand now that resistance is pointless. He turned to address the group of diplomats and military officers who had come with him. Let this be a lesson in how superior species handle inferior ones. Show them strength. Give them clear rules. And when they obey, let them live in peace. The humans will make good servants once they learn proper respect. The diplomats nodded and murmured agreement. They had all heard this speech before. But they knew better than to look bored. Vexari opened his mouth to continue. But at that moment, every light on the bridge went out. Emergency power kicked in a second later, filling the room with dim red light. Alarms started screaming. Officers ran to their stations, trying to figure out what was happening. What is going on? Vexari demanded. All 4 of his eyes were wide with confusion and the beginning of fear. Tevlos was frantically pressing buttons on his console. I do not know, Ambassador. We have lost main power. Backup systems are failing. This should not be possible. None of this should be possible. The main view screen flickered and came back to life. But instead of showing the stars, it showed a human face. Lisa Holloway looked different than she had 6 months ago. Her eyes were harder. Her uniform was black instead of the diplomatic gray she used to wear. When she spoke, her voice was calm and controlled. Ambassador Vexori, how nice to see you again. Vexori's translator struggled to express his shock. How this is impossible. You cannot be here. You are probably wondering how we got onto your ship without being detected, Lisa said. Or how we shut down your systems. Or what is happening to the rest of your fleet right now, eh? She paused and smiled. The answer to all of those questions is simple. You underestimated us. The camera view widened. Vexari could see human soldiers moving through the corridors of his ship. They were rounding up his crew, taking their weapons, putting them in restraints. Everything was happening with perfect speed and coordination. Your fleet is experiencing the same thing, Lisa continued. Every ship. All at once. We wrote a computer virus that your systems could not detect or stop. Your weapons are offline. Your engines are locked. Your communications are being routed through us. She leaned closer to the camera. 194 ships. 22,000 crew members. All completely helpless. We could destroy every single one of you right now, and there is nothing you could do to stop us. Vexari found his voice, though it shook badly. You would not dare. The Council would send more fleets. They would burn your planet to ash. Would they? By the time they found out what happened and organized a response, we would be ready for them too. Lisa straightened up. But we are not going to destroy you. Not today. We are going to do something much worse. What do you want? I want you to deliver a message to the Council. To every species in this galaxy. Lisa's expression went cold. You called us savages. You said we were primitive. You tried to cage us in our own solar system. Hologram appeared beside her, showing Earth's new fleet. 73 ships with dimensional fold drives. Designed so advanced, they made Kelthorian technology look like toys. We built these in 6 months. While you were watching us and laughing at us, we were working. While you celebrated your victory, we were preparing. This is what humans do when they are threatened. This is what we have always done. The hologram changed to show detailed maps of Kelthorian military bases, council communication networks, and the home addresses of every senior diplomat who had voted for the quarantine. We know where you live. We know how you talk to each other. We know every weakness in every system you have. And now you know that we can reach you whenever we want. Vexari's scales had turned pale. This is an act of war. No, Lisa said. War is what happens next if you do not listen very carefully. This is a demonstration. A single demonstration of what we can do when we try. The quarantine ends today. Our colonies will be returned to us. And the next time the Council thinks about pushing around a weaker species, they will remember what happened here. She paused to let her words sink in. You have 1 day to tell the Council what we want. If we do not get a positive response, we will provide another demonstration, and that one will not be so gentle. The transmission ended. On the bridge of Dominion's wrath, no one moved. No one spoke. The only sound was the wailing of alarms that no one knew how to turn off. A young human soldier approached Vexari. She could not have been more than 20 years old, but she carried herself like a veteran of 100 battles. Ambassador, she said politely, please come with me. We have prepared quarters for you. They are quite comfortable, I promise. Vexari let himself be led away. His mind was spinning, trying to understand what had just happened. The implications? The sheer impossibility of it all. These were supposed to be primitives. Savages. Creatures. Barely capable of leaving their own planet. How had they done this? How had they appeared on his ship like ghosts? How had they turned his entire fleet into prisoners without firing a single shot? And then there was the feeling in his chest. The same feeling he had experienced 6 months ago when the human commander had smiled at him. He finally knew what to call it. Terror. Pure, primal terror. The kind that came from realizing you had made a terrible mistake. The kind that came from understanding, too late, that you had awakened something you could not control. On every one of the captured ships, human soldiers were taking control. No violence, no death. Just calm, efficient, cute, overwhelming superiority. The galaxy had tried to cage humanity. Now humanity was showing them what it meant to be free. The Council's response came within 12 hours. It was not what Lisa had hoped for. Emergency sessions on Nesser Prime usually took days to organize. This one came together in hours. Delegates from across the galaxy gathered in the Great Hall, their voices mixing into a roar of anger and fear. How dare they threaten us? The Melaron delegate pulsed with fury, its energy form flickering like a broken lamp. Send every fleet we have. Destroy them all. End this species before they can hurt us.
Ow!
The chamber erupted in agreement. Thousands of aliens shouted for war. They called for human blood. They demanded revenge for the humiliation their fleet had suffered. But not everyone agreed. Ambassador Kethra of the Vanari rose from her seat. She was tall and thin, with skin that shimmered like a rainbow in the light. Her species had always been considered weak by the other powers. Too peaceful, too kind. But Kethra had survived 30 years in galactic politics by being smarter than everyone else. Perhaps we should consider, she said, her calm voice cutting through the noise, that our current approach has failed completely. Failed. Vexari appeared as a hologram in the center of the hall. He was still a prisoner on his own ship, but the humans had allowed him to speak to the Council. They have committed an act of war. They have attacked our fleet. They have demonstrated restraint, Kethra replied. They could have destroyed your ships. They did not. They could have killed your crews. They did not. They are trying to tell us something, and we would be fools not to listen. The Kelthorian representative on the chamber floor made a sound of disgust. The Vanari have always been cowards. You would have us bow to these savages. I would have us recognize reality. Kethra pulled up data on the main display. It showed the specifications of the human ships, their viral weapons, their intelligence networks. All information that the humans had deliberately shared. Look at this! In 6 months, the humans developed technology that took us 3,000 years to perfect. 6 months. While they were quarantined, while they were blockaded, while we were celebrating our victory over them. She let that sink in before continuing. This is what they built when they were cornered and desperate. What do you think they will build when they are truly angry? The chamber fell silent. Far across the galaxy, Lisa Holloway stood on the bridge of her new ship. It was called Defiance, and it was the most advanced vessel humanity had ever created. Around her, stars streamed past as the dimensional fold drive carried them through space at impossible speeds. Kevin approached with a tablet. Latest updates from the council session. They are arguing. Some want to attack us with everything they have. Others are starting to get nervous. Good. Let them argue. Lisa studied the tactical display showing the positions of every council military asset in the galaxy. What about Operation Second Wave? All teams are ready. Dr. Sullivan confirms the targeting data is correct. We can start whenever you give the word. Lisa had hoped the council would be reasonable. She had hoped that the demonstration would be enough to make them negotiate. But the calls for war, the demands for human blood, had made the decision for her. Execute. Across the galaxy, 12 council military installations went dark at the exact same moment. There were no explosions, no deaths. Just sudden, complete system failure. Defense platforms stopped working. Shipyards lost power. Communication relays went silent. The same virus that had crippled the Kelthorian fleet had spread to targets across 1,000 light years of space. On Thesser Prime, the council session became chaos. How are they doing this? Someone screamed. They are everywhere. They are inside everything. Kethra watched the panic with sad resignation. She had tried to warn them. She had tried to explain that humans were different from any species the galaxy had ever seen. But the council had not listened. They never listened until it was too late. Her personal communicator vibrated. A message on an encrypted channel she had not used in years. One she had set up during her brief time as an ambassador to Earth. She opened it. Ambassador Kethra, you were the only council member who voted against the quarantine. You were the only one who spoke for us today. We remember our friends. The current situation helps no one. We do not want war. We never did. But we will not be caged, and we will not be destroyed. If you are willing to talk, we are willing to listen. Perhaps there is a path forward that does not end in fire. The choice is yours, Commander. Lisa Holloway, Earth Defense Coalition Ankara, read the message twice. Then she looked around the council chamber at the fear and rage and chaos that had replaced the smug confidence of 6 months ago. She made her decision. 1 week later, she stood aboard the Defiance. She was the first non-human to set foot on a human vessel since the quarantine began. Lisa met her in the observation lounge, holding 2 cups of something hot and dark. It is called coffee, Lisa explained, offering 1 cup. Be careful. It is very hot. Kethra accepted the cup and studied the strange liquid with curiosity. You disabled 12 military bases. You have crippled our defensive networks. And yet you invite me for a conversation. Could have destroyed those bases completely, Lisa said, sitting down with her own cup. We could have killed millions of people. We could have made the council pay in blood for what they did to us. Why did you not? Lisa was quiet for a moment, staring out at the stars. Because we are not what they said we are. Yes, we can be violent. Yes, we have done terrible things to each other throughout our history. But we are also capable of mercy, of growth, of choosing to be better than our worst moments. She met Kethra's eyes. The council looked at our history and decided we were nothing but savages. They did not see our art, or our music, or our dreams. They did not see how we have learned from our mistakes. They did not see our ability to forgive and rebuild. And yet you have just demonstrated your ability to make war very effectively. Lisa smiled grimly. We had to. They were not going to listen to anything else. But now that we have their attention, we would like to try something different. What do you propose? A new arrangement. Humanity becomes a full member of the galactic community, with all the rights and responsibilities that involves. In exchange, we share our technology, the fold drives, the viral defenses, everything. We help build a better galaxy instead of tearing it apart. Kethra considered this carefully. She sipped the strange human drink. It was bitter, but somehow pleasant. The Council will never agree to this, she said. The Council, as it exists now, probably not. Lisa leaned forward. But councils can change. Members can be replaced. Maybe it is time for new voices. Voices that understand that working together is more valuable than fighting each other. Shh. Kethra was silent for a long moment. You were asking me to help. You change galactic civilization itself. I'm asking you to help us find a better way. For everyone. Not just humans. Everyone. The Venari ambassador looked out at the stars streaming past the window. She thought about 3,000 years of council politics. 3,000 years of the strong crushing the weak. 3,000 years of fear disguised as order. Maybe it was time for something new. She extended her hand. It was a human gesture she had learned during her time on Earth. Lisa took it firmly. Together then, Kethra said. Together. 1 year had passed since the broadcast that called humanity savages. The galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted. The Galactic Council still existed, but it looked very different now. Ambassador Vexare had been called home in disgrace. His political career ended the day he became a prisoner on his own flagship. The Melaron delegate resigned when human intelligence agents released the true history of the Vraxan extermination. 3,000 years of lies exposed in a single afternoon. New leaders had risen to fill the empty seats. The Venari, once dismissed as weak and foolish, now held real power for the first time in their history. The Thrix had abandoned their policy of staying neutral, openly supporting the movement for change. Even some Kelthorians had begun to question the old ways of doing things, and humanity was no longer quarantined. Lisa Holloway stood at the observation window of Harmony Station. It was a massive structure built by humans and 17 other species working together. The first joint project in galactic history. Ships from a dozen worlds came and went below her, their crews mixing freely in the common areas. Kevin joined her at the window. He had been promoted 3 times since the blockade. Everyone who had been part of the original operation had risen quickly through the ranks. You were thinking too hard again, he said, just remembering the broadcast. What came after? Lisa watched a human cargo ship dock next to a Venari science vessel. A year ago, such a sight would have been impossible. They called us savages. They were ready to keep us locked up forever, maybe destroy us eventually. And now look at this. Now they are asking us for help designing their new defense networks. Kevin grinned. Strange how things work out. Lisa did not smile. It should not have taken a war to get here. We had to hurt people, scare them, threaten their entire civilization. You had to make them listen. Sometimes that is what it takes. She turned to face him. Is it, though? Or did we just prove them right? Maybe we really are savages. Maybe the only difference between us and them is that we are better at being violent. Kevin was quiet for a moment. Then he pointed toward the window, toward the station stretching out below them. See that medical ship? The blue one with the Thrix markings? What about it? It is carrying medicine and supplies to a planet on the edge of known space, a species we had never even heard of until 6 months ago. They had a disease that was going to wipe out their entire population. And guess who figured out the cure? Kevin smiled. Dr. Sullivan's team. The same people who built the fold drives and the viral weapons. They stopped working on military projects 3 months ago. Everything they do now is focused on helping people. Medicine, food production, clean energy. He put a hand on her shoulder. Yes, we showed the galaxy we could fight. But we are also showing them we can heal, that we can build instead of destroy. That is not being savage. That is being human. Lisa looked at the medical ship. She looked at the beings from dozens of worlds working together on the station below. She looked at the future they were building one day at a time. I hope you are right. I usually am. She finally smiled. Do not let it go to your head. On Desser Prime, Ambassador Kethra addressed the new council. The faces in the audience were different now, younger, more uncertain, less convinced that the old ways were the only ways. 1 year ago, this council made a choice based on fear and pride. We looked at a young species and saw only what we wanted to see. We called them savages because it was easier than admitting they might be our equals. She pulled up images on the main display. Not the selective horrors of the original broadcast, but something else entirely. Human doctors working beside alien physicians, human engineers helping to rebuild damaged worlds, human artists and musicians, their work now celebrated across the galaxy. The humans could have conquered us. They had the power. They had the reason. After all, we tried to cage them. We were planning to destroy them eventually, just as we destroyed the Varaxan. She let that uncomfortable truth hang in the air. Instead, they offered us partnership. They shared their technology without asking for payment. They asked only to be treated as equals, to be judged by their actions, not our fears. Kethra looked around the chamber. We called them savages, but when they had power over us, they chose mercy. They chose cooperation. They chose to build rather than destroy. She paused. Perhaps it is time we asked ourselves an honest question. What does that make us? The chamber was silent. On Earth, in a small house outside Chicago, a woman named Maria Santos turned off the broadcast of the council session. Her grandson, 5 years old, with bright, curious eyes, was playing with a toy spaceship at her feet. "Grandma," he said, looking up at her, "what does savage mean?" Maria thought about the question carefully. She thought about the fear of the past year, the anger, the war that almost happened, and she thought about the hope that was slowly replacing all of that. "It is a word some people use when they do not understand something," she finally said. "When they are scared of something different, are people scared of us? For a little while? Yes. Are they still scared?" Maria smiled and ruffled his hair. "Not as much anymore. We showed them they did not need to be." The boy went back to his game, making engine sounds as his toy ship flew through imaginary space. Maria watched him and thought about the world he would grow up in, a world where humans had earned their place among the stars, not through war or conquest, but through something harder. Through proving that strength and kindness could exist in the same heart, they had called humanity savage. And maybe in some ways they had been right. Humans were capable of terrible violence. Their history proved that beyond any doubt, but they were also capable of so much more. The galaxy was learning that lesson now, and humanity was learning it too, remembering the best parts of themselves even as they built a new future. Outside the window, the sun was setting. Orange and gold painted the sky. Somewhere up there, beyond the clouds and the atmosphere, human ships sailed among the stars. Doctors healed the sick on distant worlds. Engineers built wonders that would have seemed like magic a generation ago. Diplomats made friends where there had once been only enemies. Maria Santos smiled and watched her grandson play. The future was bright, not because humanity had proven itself the strongest species in the galaxy, not because they had the best weapons or the fastest ships. The future was bright because when it mattered most, when they had every reason to choose revenge and destruction, humans had chosen something better. They had chosen hope, and that, in the end, was the greatest victory of all. The stars waited. And humanity, savage and beautiful and endlessly surprising, rose to meet them, not as conquerors, not as victims, but as equals, as partners, as friends. The broadcast that had tried to shame them had instead set them free. The cage that was meant to hold them had only made them stronger. The word that was meant to hurt them had become their greatest pride: savage. The galaxy had called them human, they called themselves, and now the whole universe knew what that really meant.